Haridas Thakur ki Penche Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kundagiri Govardhan ki Samaveta Ki Jai, all glories to some of the devotees, all glories to some of the devotees, all glories to some of the devotees, all glories Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Gaur Pramanande, Hari Hari Bro. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, today we're verse 28, the second chapter, I hope. So here we go. This verse is Avyaktadini Bhutani Vyaktamadhyani Bharata Avyaktanidhanamyeva Tatraka Paridevana Avyaktadini Bhutani Vyaktamadhyani Bharata Avyaktanidhanamyeva Tatraka Paridevana Avyaktadini Bhutani Vyaktamabhyani Bharata Avyaktanidhananyeva Tatraka Paridevana. Okay, so no one chants. All right. So this translation is: all created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So what is the need for? So what need is there for lamentation? Avyakta. Avyakta means in the beginning, adini, in the beginning there is avyakta. That means the non-manifested. Bhutani, all that are created, and then vyakta, they are manifested, and madhyani, in the middle, O Bharata, they are avyakta, non-manifest, and then when they're vanquished, they're unmanifest. It is all like that. Eva tatra, therefore, ka, what? Paridevana, what need is there for lamentation? Purport. Accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of the soul and another not believing in the existence of the soul, there's no cause for lamentation in either case. Non-believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of the Vedic wisdom. Yet, even if, for argument's sake, we accept this atheistic theory, there's still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before the creation. From this subtle state of non-manifestation comes manifestation, just as from ether, air is generated, and from air, fire is generated. From fire, water is generated, and from water, earth becomes manifest. From the earth, many varieties of manifestations take place. Take, for example, a big skyscraper manifested from the earth. When it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. Then what is the cause for lamentation, either in the stage of manifestation or the unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even in the unmanifest stage, things are not lost. Both at the beginning and at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested. And this does not make any real material difference. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion as stated in Bhagavad-gita, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, antavante me deha, but that the soul is eternal, nityashokra sharirina, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky. It's funny because I dreamt that last night. It was not pleasant, actually. I have that dream sometimes, like there's some problem in my dream, and then I just jump up and like a drone, I'm looking down. I'm sure a lot of people have the dream. It's kind of funny. And somebody was lamenting when I came down out of this. I didn't go very high. I go, not 100, 300 feet. But when I came down, this devotee I knew, he's a young devotee with a bunch of kids, and he's always having problems. And he was lamenting over his same problems. And I was saying, just fly up in the sky. Then I was thinking in the dream, like, but that didn't really do anything, and you go up there, and the problems are still going to be when he comes down. And I also had problems when I came down. I thought, wow. So it doesn't solve anything flying in the dream. That it was very vivid, actually. Something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king, but when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky or seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. That's an interesting statement that'll stick in anybody's head, I think. Encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. That would be scary for anybody. If you're a new person, you're like, wow, what does that mean? It means that the body is just there now temporarily. So many bodies have come and gone like bubbles in the sea, and again disappeared. Sasang yunakti bhutani saeva vyanakti cha. This when Narad Muni came up into the situation where Yudhishthira was lamenting. Yudhishthira had been lamenting back in chapter 10, first canto, over the battle of Kurukshetra. And so he again was lamenting in the situation because although he'd been so mistreated by his uncle Dhritarashtra, but still Dhritarashtra was living there under his care. He was so merciful. Although the Pandavas had killed all the sons of Dhritarashtra, so he kind of felt sorry for him too, And some way he was feeling this lamentation. When Narad Muni had come there, first Vidura came, and Vidura was preaching detachment to Dhritarashtra. He'd always been preaching to him. So he, finally after so long, his whole life, he left home, and he with Gandharya's wife and Vidura, they all went away. And so Yudhishthira, not seeing any of them, and he was lamenting. Then Narad Muni came there, understanding this lamentation, and he was speaking like this: Makanchana Shucho Rajan, a king. Now, Dhritarashtra is a good example because he was thinking he was being called a king all along, but he couldn't be the king because he was blind. But he was called like that. So this lamentation was going on. So Narad Muni was saying, don't lament at any time, Kanchana, at any time, because there's nothing you can do. He said, Makanchana Surajan. He says, Balami Shitu. Not only everyone is under the protection or has to be under the shelter of Krishna, but the leaders, Sapalo, Palo means the protectors, their own kings, protectors, demigods, all Kala Karma Gunadino, they're all under the time element, Kala and Karma and Guna, whatever qualities they have. These things especially summarized there. They come together. Sasang Yunakti means they come together, and just like the elements in the body, they somehow assemble in our bodies. And just last night, one Prabhupada disciple left his body, and we saw a picture, and he just got a garland just in time. He was down near Miami, Hans Avatar. And he was gone. We were just talking to him just a few months back. He was living up here and selling off his stuff. We bought a bunch of stuff. People were buying his stuff because he was going to go to England. His mother-in-law, 95, everything changed like that. And he got diagnosed with heavy terminal disease until he decided to go down somewhere. He left here, but there were hardly any devotees there, unfortunately. But Dharmatma mercifully drove down and put a garland on him just before he left his body, so that, of course, his wife was there, and it might have been after some devotees drove all the way up from or somewhere. So he got that, but he was gone. And when that body is gone, never see that body again. You can see his picture and everything. It's just in fact, there's one shloka, Dravida pointed it out to me a few years ago, and Swapne, it begins with this word, dreaming. Means, and this verse is repeated 5 times. I was amazed. I thought I knew a little bit about Bhagavatam, but I was surprised. I thought there's a few verses that are twice quoted at the beginning of the Bhagavad, like the first canto, and then at the end. But there's that verse, which I'm not saying the whole verse right now, but it's Kapila Dev has it. It's in the first canto. It's in the back up in the 11, 12 canto. Twice, I think, Kapila Dev expressing this dream quality, avidya, this ignorant dream quality of the material world. We don't say it's a dream like my body, but a dream like. It's not a total dream. So so non-existence. Here it says, in either case, one who believes in the existence of the soul, one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation. So you find in these slokas that, especially here in this sloka now, for one who's taken birth, that's in 27, there's a Krishna's presenting counter arguments, and then counter arguments. When you look at, you have a chance to look at Vedanta Sutra, or even within Upanishads, but especially in the Vedanta Sutra, and Baladev Vidyabhushan has, written the commentary on Vedanta Sutra, which I know Kushakrata has it, and I read that sometimes. So there's 4 chapters in the Vedanta Sutra, and the Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. I mean, there's no real absolute reason to read it, but if someone is really like to read things, and there's so many quotes. There's so many quotes in Baladev Vidyabhushan's commentary from different Upanishads. Because in order to comment on the Vedanta Sutra, many times this avyakta word comes up. Many times, avyakta, that definition of what is avyakta. And sometimes you can refer, it's a non-manifest existence. There's not there. But so this purva paksha means argument. Samshaya means doubts. And then there's arguments against. So the commentators, they not only put forward their thesis, but they put a counter argument. So someone says this, and they'll put a very heavy argument, and then they defeat that argument again with logic and with shastric reference, so many ways. So this is like Krishna's doing. Oh, even if you say this, even if you say, okay, you are the body, but then why you want to lament? It's just material. So see that here, Krishna. This is why this is called the Gita-upanishad. Satsu is the essence of Sarva-upanishado Gavo, Dugdha-gopalanandana. All the Shastras, Upanishads are just like the desire tree, and this is like the essence, this Bhagavad-gita, milking the cream, this Gopalanandana. And we're meant to hear this and drink it every day. As much as possible to hear the Gita. So this particular verse, the purport is very nice. And you can read, if you desire, Banaswami is translated also there's Vishwanath Chakrabarti and Baladev Vidyabhushan's purport are also translated. So sometimes there's a little more there. Probably didn't put everything's enough here, but people want to read more about the avyakta. The avyakta is mentioned in Maya Chatam Idam Sarvam Jagad Avyakta Mortina. especially in the 9th chapter of the Gita, verses 4 and 5. This Vyakta Avyakta is mentioned, that in his unmanifest form, he's present. So this is almost like, we could ponder it, but if we read the explanations by some like Baladev, or he explained, this is easy to think of when you think that Krishna, he expands himself. He's unmanifest, but he expands. He himself says in the Bhagavatam, in the nutshell verses, Pravishtani Pravishtani, like that. He enters, but he does not enter at the same time. He just as the element earth enter into pots and bricks, and I think that's brought out here in this purport. This conservation of energy. So there's always these material. So one doesn't lament over the disappearance of the body. Of course, lamentation is there. There's so many instances of lamentation in Bhagavatam. Besides Yudhishthira Maharaj, there are various types of lamentation. In the mundane sense, in the material world, it's described by Chanakya Pandit that there's thousands, Sokashtani Sahasrani. Shoka means this lamentation. And there's many hundreds and thousands of causes of lamentation. People are constantly lamenting and fighting, bickering in a Kali Yuga. Especially it's increase every day. It's increasing more and more lamentation. In the near the end, Brahma Bhuta Pashanatmana Shochati Nakamshati Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu. By reading Gita, by reading Bhagavatam, the mind becomes fixed. Sudrida Manash. The Siddhanta is everywhere. Shastra, in the Shastra, Sava Shastrabdi, Piyusam. One should drink the nectar of Gita and Bhagavatam. Piyusa means to drink it. Pibanti Bhagavata Atmanasatam. Bhagavad-gita gives a basic idea. Prabhupada many times would say ABC. Of course, it's very advanced nowadays. Most people will not understand even Bhagavad-gita, but most people. But those who do, they enjoy immortality. Anarimat Param Brahma Nasatan Nasaruchite, in the 13th chapter of this one Gita. I will explain this to you, that this, how everything is under me, Anarimat, this Brahman, material energy, everything is under me, Krishna tells Arjuna. And then you will taste, Mritam Ashnute, you will taste the eternal. Understanding this, you will taste the eternal. So one should be attracted, Prabhupada said, when he hears that. Vyakta. In the 8th chapter, the Vyakta is mentioned that there's Tasmat, Parastasmat, Vyakto Yam, what is it? Parastasmat Tubhavo Yam, Vyakto Vyaktat Sanatana. Beyond the unmanifest, non-manifested, the eternal world. So we're headed for that. And by reading Gita every day. In fact, the next purport you can see, Prabhupada says right there, Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads. And it's called Gita Upanishad. It is not surprising to find this passage, and then there's a shloka almost exactly. You can find that Krishna is quoting Vedanta Vid Veda Vid Eva. That I'm the composer of the Vedanta. And he even refers to Brahma Sutra Padaish Chaiva, to the Brahma Sutra. And even Vyasadeva was lamenting. Narad Muni came and relieved him of his lamentation. He gave him wonderful instructions to relieve his lamentation. We can say that that's not mundane lamentation, but we're also aspiring for that type of lamentation. And he was upset not over the body. Well, according to Narad Muni, he said that you have actually catered to people's bodily consciousness. Therefore, when you first hear about Vyasadeva's instructions, you hear Anato Pasamam Saksha Bhakti Yoga Madhoksade. That Vyasadeva's primary mood in Bhagavatam is to free living entities, especially human beings, from lamentation. And lamentation is based on largely on upadi. Sarvopadi venir muktam. One has to become free of the upadi. If we think this designation, this person is the father, my mother, my child, then this is not spiritual realization. Nitya Shokta, what is it? In the 5th chapter of the Gita, there's amazing shlokas. Ihaivataya jita sargo, yesham sammes ditamana. What does it say there? Ihaivataya jita sargo. One conquers sarga. Sarga means samsara, or the material energy identity with the body. Ihaivataya jita means conquers. Yesham samyes ditamana. When one becomes situated in this samam sarveshu bhuteshu, tishtantam. Krishna is situated in this always. He's equal, and he recommends that just like parasabhava kamani, naprashangsam. And twice this verse comes up in 11th canto. Krishna speaking to Uddhava that the transcendentalists should see the world parasabhava karmina prashangsam. He doesn't praise or condemn anybody else's activities. Parasabhava, the natural characteristics of others. It's very difficult to be in that situation, but just like we see Gorkashore Das Babaji, he didn't. He condemned, of course, bogus people, but he didn't have any. He didn't. His Leela was not to preach. I cannot help these people. He's just seeing that, like, let them. They're rascals, all going to hell. Prabhupada actually said that. He said, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's guru, my grand guru, Gorkashore Das Babaji. He was sitting chanting mostly all the time and relishing, songs of Narottam Das and Bhaktivinoda like that, chanting, singing. Of course, he was very heavy and very renounced. We can't even calculate. But his mood was not to go. He didn't even want to go to Calcutta. When he was actually going blind, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivinoda, they said, look, we can bring you to Calcutta. A doctor can help you. And no, we'll not go to Calcutta. That is the material world. Nothing to do with it. Rather go blind. So he was quite detached. Vairagya kena samyate. Entire Bhagavatam is meant from beginning to end, the middle, to develop vairagya. Vairagya Staram, the essence of Bhagavatam is this vairagya, without which we don't go very far. Vairagya. Ragadvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indraishcharan. We have to be free of this praise, blame. Krishna gives all these characteristics of the devotee throughout the Gita. That ishtanishtopapatesu, praised, blamed, indifferent to all that has been heard, all that is to be heard. Hammered in different ways. Krishna says to Uddhava, another thing he says in 11th canto, Uddhava said, there are so many philosophers, and they're saying seemingly contradictory things, but many of them are devotees, and they almost sound like different. Krishna said, that's okay. They're under my protection. They can say so many things in different ways, but it's all aiming toward me. It's all under me. Anadimat Param Brahma. Madhyam is all in relation to me. So, of course, he was speaking of transcendentalists who are actually advanced. But this verse, Parasabhava Karmani, how one should view the characteristics of others, and one of those characteristics is obviously leaving your body. We could say that's definitely a characteristic when you give up the body. So one of those, it's mentioned there with that the rascal, what was his name? Lord, he was criticizing Lord Chaitanya. He was one of Madhavendra Puri's disciples, Ramchandra Puri. And Ramchandra Puri, he was trying to follow that shloka, or that instruction throughout the Shastras, not just Krishna, but everything's Krishna, but it's in other Shastras, that a sannyasi, he was a sannyasi, should not praise or blame others or criticize. So although he followed the no praising, but he couldn't quite follow the other one, the other part, the second part, not to criticize. So he was always criticizing. That was he. Constantly. Even Lord Chaitanya he criticized. He couldn't help it. But he had been more or less rejected by his own spiritual master, who was lamenting. Madhavendra Puri, the most advanced person. He's a desire tree in the spiritual world. But he was lamenting, I dina dadranath, hey maturanath. But the way Ramachandra Puri saw that he was lamenting leaving his body, but it was so off that Madhavendra Puri said, get this rascal away. I don't want to see him while I'm leaving my body. I will not be able to think of Krishna. I mean, wow, that's really a heavy rejection. None of us want that type of reputation. But somehow he's in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. We read about him. But some things are meant as a bad example. He's definitely meant as a bad example. But Lord Chaitanya was accepting him as guru. When he criticized Lord Chaitanya that he was attached to and eating sweets because there were some ants on the floor. And can you imagine? Lord Chaitanya was too attached to eating sweets. I don't think so. But because he saw some ants, he took this supposition that, oh, this sannyasi eats too much. He would feed people a lot and then criticize them. So why do you eat so much? After bringing them all this Mahaprasad. So then Lord Chaitanya cut his eating down to something like a quarter. He said, from now on, I'll only eat this much. And everyone was like, oh my God. I mean, they're all trying to get him to come to their house to eat lunch every day. Invitation is, and here he's going to eat, so little. And he was advised by other god brothers of this Ramchandra Puri. But Ishvara Puri, he got the benediction, just taking care of his guru, his spiritual master. So this is an instruction to sannyasis, especially Parasabhavakami. Rather, he should see Vishvam Ekatmakam Pashan. Pashan means to see Vishvam. The whole universe is going on. Prakritiya Purushena cha, as an interaction between the Purusha and Prakriti, material energy and the Purusha. They're interacting. Sometimes we have these realizations. People do Sankirtan. They, if you do, I think that's a good process. I mean, I don't do book distribution now, but I mean, it did a long time ago. And you get this, you become detached. You can't lament. Oh, somebody doesn't take a book, but you start to see people as spirit soul. And even early on, even Prabhupada said, a brand new person, if you follow the principles, you can see this. The spirit soul is not the body, even if, and then here Krishna saying, even if you think you're the body. So throughout Bhagavatam, we have so many instructions, and the Dhruva Maharaj was lamenting. His lamentation came out that he wanted to avenge the death of his brother he was killing. Manu had to preach to him. Swamin Katatosmi Varam Najache. Finally, when he was a boy, he had seen Krishna. He got that vision of Krishna. Therefore, he gave up all lamentation. Tansota Shocham Navidona Shoche. There's one verse there, Vidura speaking with Maitreya in the third canto, where he talks about those who lament, they're pitiable, and they're pitied by the pitiable. Which explains being that the ordinary persons are pitied by impersonalist gyanis, and they pity them that why they're working like this, be karmis. Nunam pramapta kurute vikarma. Nunam vikarma. Rishabdev is giving his verse, any nice instructions. But there he's saying, certainly, nunam pram. Everyone is mad, chasing after this material body, although it's going to perish. Krishna is trying to convince us. Arjuna, he's already eternal associate. But we're the ones reading, hearing every day. We have to hear it again and again. We should come to the same conclusion. Nashta mohasmriti labda tat prasadan mayachita. At the end of the Gita, one of the statements by Arjuna, he said, Krishna said, is illusion now gone that I talked to you this whole Bhagavad Gita? We've gone through all this. He exhibited the universal form and explained all the types of yoga. And Arjuna said, yes, I am prepared to do what you say. Nashtamahosmitila, tat prasadam, by your mercy. Tat prasadam mayachita. Karashe vachanam tava. I'm prepared to do what you want. So what is Krishna saying here? What does he want? And this is also for us right here. To follow these instructions. And Arjuna did it. At the end, he did it. First, he made so many arguments, and Krishna presented his arguments. And Arjuna's arguments were, probably way better than we could come up with. How the first chapter describes how society will be polluted if we kill, if we fight, and this will happen. And gradually, we're coming to this point here. But that comes later, actually. We still haven't gotten to that part about the... but in the beginning, he was lamenting. Vishada, his lamentation. At the end of that chapter, how he dropped his bow and became silent. And so this means everyone is in this situation of lamentation, either lamenting or hankering, lamenting. Prabhupada said that's the main business. Sometimes he called it the business of another. Always need another thing, a new thing, more and more. Never satisfied. Like throwing ghee on the fire. Kamam ashritya dushpuram. Dushpurananalenacha. It burns like fire. The more we desire to satisfy the body and satisfy the false ego, all these things, and we become entangled. So, therefore, Vyasadeva composed the Bhagavatam with the first intention, Sarvopadi, Anartopashamam Saksha, Bhakti Yoga Helpde. Lokasha Janato Vidbam Shakre Satata Sangita. Vidbang means he's very, very learned. Sometimes Haridas Thakur is called Mahavidbang. Not only Vidbang, Mahavidbang. So we think that we know that Haridas Thakur was chanting all day, but he was also known as Mahavidbang, inconceivable intelligence. He knew the Shastras. It wasn't just that he only chanted, but he was preaching. He was firmly convinced that he wasn't the body. He says, Jai Jari Pran. He said, Ami Badane, Nam Bole Badane, Chari Harinam. That's what he said. He said, Kanda Kanda means you can cut my body to pieces. When the rascal demon Muslim magistrates, they brought Haridas in. Actually, I don't even know if the king was so bad, as bad as the Qazis. They brought him in, government men. They were not these magistrates. They brought him in there, and they're complaining that it's Haridas. He's born as a purified Muslim, and now he wants to take up this Hindu religion of chanting. We have to stop him. So Haridas could have just said, okay, I won't chant anymore. But no, he said, no, Kanda Kanda, hi, Jai Jari Pram, Ami Chari Vadane E Harina. I will not stop, I will not give up chanting He said, why are you speaking of this Muslim God and this Hindu God? And this is all nonsense. It's one God. He teaches them. He was a strong preacher, not just simply that he was only chanting in the corner or something. People imitate Haridas Thakur, and that's not possible. Uh, so very strongly preaching. When Kamsa, such a rascal, he was ready to kill. Well, he was killing before he even killed. Maharaj Vasudev was preaching to him. Yato yato davati apapanchashu. There are many slokas there, wonderful slokas. He addressed him as Veer, very powerful king, you're a great powerful king. Why you're lamenting? Ajababda Shatanti Cha. Today or tomorrow, your body is going to be finished. Just think, Kamsa had supposedly defeated demigods, and he'd organized all the demons under Jasanda, maybe so many other demons that he sent to Vrindavan in different guises, Putana, this one, that one, so many. It was very powerful. And still, he was simply defending his body, simply worried that this Krishna will kill me. And so Vasudeva was flattering him. Oh, you're a great king. So today or tomorrow, though, Ajababda. Aja means now, or Satanti. After 100 years, the body's going to be finished. So you should not worry about that. You're simply doing all the sinful activity. So in this way, we hear that Shabda is nunam pramapta, mad, doing this V-karma. And by that V-karma, they're getting more and more bodies. Karmatmakam yena sharira, bandha, they're bound up in the body. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his songs, he's singing about that many times. Anadi karma pale, paribhavanana vajale. Anadi karma, but before the beginning of time, there's not even, you can't trace it when, somehow or other, we came under this karma, and we're bound up. He said, he's speaking like an ordinary person, anadi, from time immemorial, nadi karma pale, the fruits of our karma. In Bengali, they say karma, not always, but just to make it poetic, you can add a syllable instead of karma, karama pale, karma pale. Due to the fruits of my activity. Anadi karma pale, paribhavanana vajale. They're pushed and fallen, pushed, paribhavanana, in this ocean of bhava Sindhu. This is bhava, not bhav. Bhav means ecstatic or some feeling, emotional. But bhava sagare means the ocean of birth and death, to become, to be. In other words, to come into this world. Bhuta, bhutra paliyate. It's 8 chapters describing that. Again and again, coming into this material world. Though Bhagavatam is meant to cut that. Chindanti kovidas tasya kona korya kataratim. Who will not become attracted? Why would you want to be bound up by material desires? Even if you think you're the body. Even if you think you're the body, why would anybody want to not be, why would someone not want to be liberated from this entanglement? Always lamenting, always hankering for something. Oh, I need this, I need it. Everyone is suffering, burning. Describe their day and night. Divanishi Ajvale. Divanishi means day and night. Divanishi Ajvale, burning day and night. It's increasing this. Always baffled, Prabhupada said. There's no, if we want a lamentation, if we want to get rid of the mundane lamentation, then Narottam Das tells us that in his song that Gorapahona Bhajiya, he's lamenting for us, for himself, but for us especially, on behalf of us. We don't know how to lament properly. But he's saying like that. Gorapahona Bhajiya. I didn't worship Gora. means Prabhu, the Lord, Gora, Mahaprabhu, Purpuna Bhajiya. Prema Ratana Dana Helai Haraino. I could have, or I have the jewel of Prema. Prema Ratana Dana. Prema Ratana is a jewel of wealth. Prema Ratana Dana Helai Haraino. But I neglected it. And he said, rather, Vishama Vishaya Visha Satatak. I drank the poison of sense gratification, and I'm getting more and more entangled. Vishaya Bishama Bisha. Very nice poetry in Bengali. Bishama Vishaya Bisha Satatakainu. Always I drank this dangerous poison of sense gratification. Bishama means dangerous. Bisha is poison. Bishama Bisha. Vishaya is sense objects. Sometimes, of course, Vishaya can mean Krishna. If he becomes your primary sense object, then you're doing pretty good. But generally, material world, 99.99%, 9,000 million %, simply drinking this burning holocaust. They're enjoying it. It's trying to enjoy this material world and creating so many. Described by Prahlad Maharaj. The medicine that they're trying to counteract is worse than the actual disease. Duk Oshad. Ainichi Oshodi, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Chaitanya Maharaj brought the medicine, Oshodi. Ainichi Oshodi, Maya. Nashi Bharavagi. It will destroy Maya. Take this medicine. Hare Nam Mahamantra Lao to me, Magi. Take that medicine that will destroy your lamentation in this material world. You're burning day and night. Divanishi Hiyajvale. So, in the end, Nartam and that song, anyway, he says that Kenibachai Pram Tishukalagi. Why did I maintain my pran? I should have died. I did not worship Chaitanya Prabhu. Satsanga Charikaino Asate Bilas. I took Bilas means pleasure in this asat. This asat, non-existence. Here it's saying on the basis of non-existence of the material body. So in general, it's called asat. Asato mam sadgama. One should give up the asat, that which is not eternal, and come to the light, Jyotirgama, like that. So we're being pushed by these acharyas, Swayam Samotira, in prayers of the Garbhastuti when Krishna's in the womb. There's some very nice prayers there describing how the Tatpadapotena, Krishna is like the sun, Dhuman, and the acharyas have come to bring us, they have gone on to the other side. It says, Bhavarnavam Bhimam Adabhachakshu. Adabhachakshu means they're incessantly merciful to the living entities. Even though they've gone on to the spiritual world, you can open the book. I read the whole day for at least 5-6 hours at least. I was reading so many things, Baladev Vidugbhushan, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, amazing, genius, super, we couldn't, it's just, the only thing you can say is you just, wow, those amazing persons. And they left Prabhupada, Bhakti, they left all these commentaries and shlokas for us to ponder the whole, we cannot find, 10 million lives to catch up to understand what is there. You can read it again and again. Nashochati Muhyamana, Samani Vrikshed, the Upanishads, very nice if you knew Sanskrit, or even you don't know it now, it's there. One scholar, he said that when he was studying, a mundane scholar that, an academic scholar, he liked Prabhupada, I forgot which one it was, but he said how previously he couldn't even find any Bhagavatam before Prabhupada translated the Bhagavatam. Now he said you go anywhere in the airport and they're giving you a Bhagavatam. He was trying to study Srimad Bhagavatam as a scholar in the university. And when he saw, well, this Swami just came in, he's translating the whole Bhagavatam. It is the real deal. He knew that. Prabhupada had the bhakti. And so they're incessantly trying to take us out of this ocean, Bhavasagarasya, birth and death. Then our only business is to just chant Hare Krishna and study these books, just like Prabhupada said. Some sannyasis, they were coming and going. I mean, they weren't doing so well. Prabhupada said, they must make the mind strong. Siddhanta bolya chitte na koro alas. Hoite Krishna lagi sudrida manash. Sudrida means strong. Make the mind very strong. Don't be lazy. Siddhanta bolya chitte. That consciousness should be absorbed in the siddhantas. Means the conclusion. And there's nothing. Shava shastrabi. Nothing but siddhanta in these books. This is siddhanta means this just basically all the different tattvas. We have one book that just describes the 18 different tattvas. Even Varnashrama is one considered one, but it's a topic anyway. But they were delineated in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's time. So generally we describe, basic 5 tattvas, Bhaktivinoda has several books, Tattva Vivek, and another commentary, just where he's quoting all the Upanishads. So these great persons, we may not, we're ignorant fools. Dugame Patimandasha, Krishna's Kaviraj describes that our path is very difficult. Bodha Jato, born ignorant, we didn't have any of this knowledge, but it's being pushed on us. Here, take it. So Dugame Pati Mandasha, and we're blind. We're walking on the path, but not only walking, but Kaviraj says, I'm blind. But what should I do? Durgame means difficult, like Durga, Mama Maya Durkyaya, Durgam Patastad Gavyo Vadanti. So Kaviraj says, Durgame Pati Manda Skalat Padagatir Mahu. Skalat means we're slipping, the feet are slip. If you're blind and the path is full of rocks and you don't know where to walk. Very unfortunate. Therefore he says, Yakripa Yasti Danina. Sakripa Yasti Danina. Should take full advantage of the mercy of these acharyas. The stick of their mercy. So you're blind, you don't even have a stick to feel around. The very vivid description, metaphor that he's giving. And we're diseased, skin disease, probably called it, to identify with the body as skin disease. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the supreme physician also. And Dainyarnave Namagnoham, Kaviraj Goswami says, therefore, I'm being bitten by all these boils of envy, and I have insects crawling all over my body, the way he describes it. Therefore, what should I do? He says, Dainyarnave, I should dive into an ocean of humility, because if one is humble and he doesn't, less chance of identifying with the body. I mean, you have to become humble, because when you see the vast intellect of the guru, I mean, there are so many gurus, of course, but when we have our acharyas given us in the Shastras, favorable winds, all the Shastras, Ladva Sudura Mavidam Bahusambhavanti, means that we, near the end of the Bhagavatam, Ladva Sudura, very difficult. You got this human form. There's so many other entities, they can't understand anything. You can't become detached or hear the Shastra. They may hear the holy name. Sometimes they have a dog or a cat that hangs around the temple, very fortunate, but generally they're not fortunate, and very rare. therefore Bhagavatam says, you got this human form of life, don't waste it. Tornam yateta, very quickly, immediately, tornam yateta napated, before you fall down, lose this chance again. Tornam means immediately, quickly. Tornam yateta napated, before you fall again. Die means mrityu yavam, into give up the body. Tornam yateta napated mrityu yavam. You have to take up this Krishna consciousness. And he says, otherwise one is atmaha, he's killing, his destroying yourself, killing your soul. You're simply suicidal. The whole material world is suicidal. They're crazy idiots all. Yeah. It's very nice. You can always find something. Sometimes we don't have attraction to hear, chant, read, but there's always something that's very nice. As soon as you open it, then you say, oh, wow, I'm missing something here. Therefore, satam prasanga mama virya samvido, when there's association, this verse is there, Kapila Dev, satam prasanga mama virya sam, bhavanti hutkana rasayana kata. Rasayana means it's the nectar for the ear. Kata, rasayana kata. Satam prasanga mama virya samvido, it's very powerful. Tadvirya gayana mahamita magnaja. Prahlad says, I am not lamenting because I'm feeling this powerful nectar of association with devotees, and with, of course, he didn't get that much association with devotees. He was so powerful, but he got the association directly with Krishna. And therefore he said, I'm not lamenting for myself or anything, but I am lamenting because I'm seeing these fools and rascals. Shoche tito, I'm lamenting, shoche, that's true, but not for myself. I'm lamenting for them. Shoche tito vimuka, because they're vimuka, chetasa, their consciousness is vimuka, the face, and they turn their face away from Krishna. Vimuka chetasa. Indriyartha, what are they doing? Indriya, they're simply finding value in the sense perception. So Chaitito Vimuka Chaita Sandhyartam. Maya, and how do they do it? They're simply, anyone can see, every day, every minute. Maya Sukaya Baram Udvahato Vimudha. Prabhupada sometimes said that Vimudha, not just mudha or ass or rascal, but Vimudha means specifically, and he said 1,000 times ass, because an ass, he's just a mule, donkey, or whatever. He has to do some stupid thing, carrying thing. That's all right. But you're a human being, so you wasted your time. Therefore, you are 1,000 times worse than an ass. Vimudha, Maya Sukaya, finding this flickering pleasure. Maya Sukaya Baram Udvato means lifting huge burdens, building all this material civilization, Kali Yuga civilization, lay cement on everything and just pollute everything, and just can't even see in the air. I mean, everything is, all you can see with Shastra Chakshus. How they're doing like that. It's all playing out. Probably would sometimes quote, they always quote, but different things. Like Hridayendra Maharaj said one time he was going on a walk out in LA to Venice Beach or somewhere. And Prabhupada he was in the car, and Prabhupada was, every time they'd go by a billboard, Prabhupada would point with his cane and say, Moga Asha, Moga Karma, no Moga Jnanavachetasa. I think it's 7th chapter of the Gita. I always get the 7th and the 9th, I'm a little confused, but Moga Asha, Moga Karma, no Moga Jnanavachetasa, Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva, because they're Asurim and Rakshashas, therefore everything is doom. Moga Asha, all their aspiration, Asha means aspiration. Moga, it's all illusion, all doom. Moga Asha, Moga Karma, no? All their aspiration, all their karma, moga, all their jnana, Maya Prita Jnana, everything, because Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva, Asuram Bhava Mahashri, they've taken shelter of this Asuram mentality. Okay, I don't know when this class ends, but you can give me a hint. So
we usually go.
Tomorrow, but I guess that's when I do a translated class. Sometimes there's a Spanish class, and then it has to go like double because they're doing a different language. But I already did one class this morning, so I clashed out. If you want to do the questioning,
Prabhu, yeah, I mean, we usually
fit for all these classes.
Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I do. My sound went off because of mysterious.
Okay. Yeah.
Sound went off on my speaker, not on the computer. I just have to click it again. Yeah, I clicked it.
Okay.
I'm very technically dull, stupid.
Unlike how you are spiritually. Yeah, so we usually have this run till about 7, and that includes discussion with others. So you feel free to have questions and answers, comments when you like.
Okay, all right. People can ask questions. I mean, like I said, I spoke for an hour this morning or something. So I'm not like one. I don't like to give class 24/7 or something. Like hear myself talk basically. Plus, I heard a couple of classes, and it's not the same. I'm just sitting there listening. However, yeah, if there's anything, one of people can also talk. I'm not the only one who can talk. It's like.
Well, why don't let's first comments. Pushkar is welcoming comments, but let's also see if anyone has any questions. This is sort of our group here includes a lot of people who are on the newer side to the top, the Bhagavad-gita. So
Right. Probably
there's a bunch of questions.
I probably overquoted I did my quota on quotes. I did my quota on some quotes that might not be familiar with, but if they want to ask an explanation or anything.
Yeah, so feel free if anyone wants to ask about that. But of course, your quotes, it helps to give us all a taste for how rich the Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's teachings are. So that's very nice. But yeah, so go ahead. Others who would like to ask something, please,
I have a question.
Somebody's talking. Yeah, let me hear it.
Yes, my question is, I'm hoping that you can describe the difference between lamenting and grieving.
Well, good grief. That's a good question. But good grief, where'd they get that term? Anyway, grieving and lamenting. Well, grieving is a little more different. I don't have a dictionary here, but I would say people grieve when someone relative dies, or so many things to grieve. There's very much overlap, but there's a slight difference in that specifically grieving, not specifically, but more usually is used for this situation where people are grieving, like for death in the family. And the Prabhupada said that's normal. Even Arjuna was grieving, even different characters that we read about, great persons, they grieved. Like when his son was killed in the Battle of Kurukshetra, there was grief. Yudhishthira was grieving, he was lamenting. So yeah, there's overlap. You can say, I'm sure we could think of different times that grieving would be more appropriate and lamenting is more broad. It reminds me of, I'm not going to, of course, mention any name, but there was one devotee, and one day he told me he wasn't getting along with his wife, and that she was going to this support group for grief support. It wasn't called lamentation support group, but it was called grief support. And that theoretically, like when you lose someone, then they get together, people get together like that. But the catch, I don't want to say funny part was, but it was weird. He asked me if I thought it was normal that because their daughters had been engaged to one guy. He was older than the daughter than me. He was probably in his early 20s, and she was 14 or something. I don't know, not that much yet. He was older than her. But since the daughter had broken up with, or had been, quote, dissed or uh, left by this devotee, um, the daughter wasn't going to the grieving support group, but the mother was going. So I thought it was kind of weird. I said, that sounds weird. I mean, your daughter's not even going to a support group, for a grieving support group, but your wife is going. I mean, it's like weird. Yeah, I think it's weird.
Maybe,
I said,
maybe she was grieving since she wasn't getting along with her husband. Maybe she was grieving the loss of her marriage.
well, here's the deal. They never got married. We're talking about the mother of the daughter. The daughter's boyfriend left her, but the mother was grieving, and not only just grieving, going to a whole support group. And the husband, he's a Prabhupada disciple, he was asking me if I thought it was normal. And I said, that's weird. That's not normal. I mean, um, you're lamenting because your daughter's, I mean, there's other guys, but the problem with the daughter was she didn't speak to anyone, right? She had this problem. I used to, I don't want to say teach art. She didn't speak to anybody. She only spoke to kids once in a while. She would. So at that time of her life, I think now she's improved, but she didn't speak to anybody, any adult especially, never, ever, not her parents, nobody. And she didn't speak to her boyfriend. So he was fried. So he just couldn't relate to her. And so it appears that the mother of the daughter was very upset. If she liked that guy a lot, that's true. She wanted him to marry her daughter. But I opined that I thought it was weird. It was not, why would you grieve over that? I mean, that's lamentation, but no one died. It just seemed more of a strange situation, but it reminded me of that for some reason. So, but there's a slight difference and there's a lot of overlap. I wouldn't worry about the definitions. It's like hair splitting in a way. But yeah, it's a good question in a way. But the grieving usually reserved for that particular thing when people die, like that, or very traumatic events, interpersonal events. A lamentation is a more broad term. Lamenting, I lost this, my money. There was one German billionaire. When they had the downturn in 2008, and I read about this guy in Germany who was apparently worth $8 billion. He was very wealthy, one of the wealthiest guys in Germany. And because he thought, or it was understood that he lost half his money, $4 billion. Later, it was discovered that he'd only lost $2 billion. He didn't really lose $4 billion. But he threw himself in front of a train. He had a nice family, 3 or 4 kids, and he was lamenting so much. What a graphic illustration, that he threw himself in front of the train. And hey, Baba, you got 4 billion, or I mean, you had 6 billion left. I mean, you know, like what, most people will just like laugh. They're like, wow, that's crazy. I mean, we don't laugh. We're devotees. But it's just strange, right? So he's lamenting so severely over losing his money. So what can be said?
Thank you. Thank you for your response.
He could say he was grieving. He caused grief by doing that. But there's grieving, there's lamenting. They're in the same area of, wordings. Probably, if you look it up, you'll get look it up in the dictionary somewhere. You would get a synonym like that, or some kind of.
Maharaj, I looked it up, and it says that lamenting would also include regret and disappointment.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
Right. So it's a more broad term then, right? Okay. So yeah, anyway. But I thought it was a little, it always struck me, it just reminded me that, to go to a grieving with other people whose relatives died, or were somehow or other very in bad shape, and then your daughter's boyfriend left, it doesn't really seem like, there's something, it doesn't really seem to come to that level of grieve over that. I never heard of anybody, they might lament a little bit over it, but not going to go to a support group. Anyway, I never heard of it, but yeah, it happened. No big deal, but that's one of the things going on. But you find grieving and lamentation going on in the Bhagavatam. Just like a certain type of grief or lamentation would be Pingala, when Krishna is speaking in 11th canto about the different types of gurus. One of them is Pingala, who apparently her name appears in other Shastra, other Puranas, and she was a prostitute, basically, society. So Krishna gave her an example as one of the 26 guru. Sometimes it says 24, 28, but depends how you measure it. So because she's one of the gurus, because Ashahi Paramam Sukam, Paramam Dukam, Nirasha Paramam Sukam. There's Dukkha and Sukha. Samekrit Bali, one should be transcendental to them. But in Pingala's case, she was a successful prostitute, I guess. But so one night, for quite some time, she couldn't get any business. So after a while, she gave up all desire to do that job as a prostitute. So she made a few statements, and there's some slokas there. So what I remember is Ashahi Paramam Dukam. This desire leads to the greatest the greatest misery. Ashahi Paramam Dukam. Nirasha, lack of desire, leads to Paramam Sukam, the greatest happiness. So there's some similar slokas, many similar slokas, just that Krishna gave that example. He gave many great examples of gurus, how the mountain, the earth, the air, the arrow maker who was so fixed on making arrow that even when the king went by on the street with his entire huge parade, retinue of associates, would imagine the whole parade of musicians, and he was so fixed on making his arrow, because I guess when you make an arrow, you really needs to be straight, and he was just making sure it was straight. You could think of Arjuna shooting the fish, or just concentrating. So, and that girl who had so many several guys coming who wanted to marry her, and nobody was home. She was caught alone, so she went in to cook, to entertain these suitors. And when she was stirring the pot, then her bangles were all making noise. So she didn't want them to know that she was endeavoring so hard. So she took off the bangles. And that was compared to when people get together, a lot of times they're just talking nonsense. They're making unnecessary noise. Interesting. Finally, the last guru, Deho Gurur, Amama Bharakti Viveka Hetur. Hetur means the cause of detachment, because Krishna is preaching how to become detached in this material world. So this guru of the body is the best guru, because it's dying all the time, every moment, and you see everyone's dying here and dying there. So therefore, it is a guru. The best guru is teaching you that it's going away. So it's teaching you detachment is the topmost of all those gurus. Deha, the body. Anything else? Any other big questions? I was laughing. There was one statement by I think Vishwanath Chakravarti where he said he described himself as a jewel merchant. And he wrote one Sanskrit verse, and I forget where, somewhere in a commentary in the Bhagavatam. And I'm just like a jewel merchant, but I don't even know the value of the jewels. But those who are actually understanding jewels, meaning the jewels of the love of God, they at least they may get some entertainment seeing me trying to sell these jewels. They may, even if they laugh at me, at least I've accomplished something. And another place he called it speaking. Well, I don't know if where it comes from, but I think I read it there where he said just like speaking big, important things with a very small mouth. He described, and so sometimes the acharyas, they show us they feel very humble that they're speaking all these truths, but their potency is they don't feel that very great and potent. So what to speak of us, ordinary persons, we definitely don't feel that we should get credit or we're speaking anything. It's all there. It's Bhagavatam. Anybody can access it at any time. And Krishna's Kaviraj describes these great, sometimes he's describing very intimate guya. Guya means confidential topics in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that he's giving them out publicly. You know, some of the pastimes of Radha Krishna. Won't be able to be understood by Gyanis, yogis, karmis, etc. So he says that's okay. Ananda Vishesh. I'm getting a special jubilation. I'm getting special happiness because they won't understand it anyway. So he says Rasika, Buji bo Rasika Bhakta, na Buji be Mudha. The Mudhas, Buji, they won't understand it anyway. So I get a special happiness out of that. Even though I'm speaking it, it'll just go over their head. And at the end of the Madhya he says, Taridam Ati Rahasyam, Gorlila Amritam. Ati Rahasyam means very confidential topics that are in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I may get criticized. Kala Samudaya Kala. Those who are envious like pigs and dogs, they might criticize me. So what? Who cares what dogs and pigs say anyway? So, although you're seeing equally, and he's several times he's praising those who read the topics of Lord Chaitanya. And he upfront says, actually, I could have given more. I mean, I don't have time. I'm an old man now. He had heard everything from Raghunath Das, who was a witness and used to speak for 3 hours every day for some time. And Kaviraj Goswami was his, if not initiated by him, but he claims Rupa Raghunath, that is Guru Rupa Raghunath Das. And he was hearing it. And so much nectar, but even we're happy we got so much nectar, but he said I could speak in 1 hour. No, Anantadev could not describe the pastimes of what Lord Chaitanya does in 1 hour with thousands of mouths. So there's a lot of nectar there to churn. Gyatam bhaktas. Gyatam muda. He says, with great happiness, one should chant these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, shruyatam, and hear them, and then chant them. And chintitam bhaktas, chaitanya charitamritam. And always think of them. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. First, Prabhupada said there has to be hearing, Shravanam, then you can speak, and then worry about meditation. We don't artificially meditate on something. No, we capture the mind between the tongue and the ear. So many people talking about meditating. What are they meditating on? They have nothing to meditate on. I mean, what are they, your body is contorting like this, or you're sitting in a lotus, but you don't. What are you thinking of? A flame, a nothing, zero. And when Lord Chaitanya was traveling, especially in South India, then when different big gurus, they were India, and so many big gurus and this and that, and Buddhists and Gyanis and Mayavadis, and there's so many. When they would hear, I don't think he was challenged by any Vaishnavas, but he challenged a few. But So they would come just like moths. It's described, a moth flies into the flame, the burning torch, the burning lamp of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, burning with the love of God, the rule.
Maharaj, could I ask a question?
So when they would come, he would defeat them one after another. Yeah, question.
Okay, what I'm wondering, you mentioned earlier Vedanta Sutra. So I'm wondering, is there an ISKCON approved version of the Vedanta Sutra and Brahma Samhita? If somebody wanted to get a good translation, which one would you get?
Brahma Samhita has been out since forever. During, in the early 70s, we had Brahma Samhita. It was already done in English originally during Prabhupada's guru's time back in the 1930s or even late 20s or 30s. So that you can order from Krishna.com or anywhere, the Brahma Samhita, you'll get it in English with the Sanskrit. That's not a problem. As far as Vedanta Sutra, I have the version by my old friend Kushakrata, which I have digitally, and I have it also in book form. I don't know if anyone else, maybe Brahman Swami has translated. He translates a lot of books. Very hard to get Brahman Swami's books and harder to get Kushakrata's. That's true. But if you look hard and if you're determined, I think you can find.
I think it's a pretty good time,
Somebody's not muted, but so yeah, you can get it. I can recommend you can try Kamalini in North Carolina. She has loads of different books. If she doesn't have it, she'll get it. She's very determined. Loads of books in North Carolina. Kamalini, it's Purva's wife. She's a big book salesman. And then, yeah, you could go online. Krishna Culture might have a copy, or I'm sure it's available. But Brahma Samhita is easy to get from the BBT. I don't know if you're familiar with BBT. I'm not a Maharaj also. That's another thing.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have a comment, kind of something I was thinking about. When you first started talking about the verse, I was thinking about how, we understand that Brahma is the engineer of this reality, of the universe. And I feel like this verse kind of reinstates that, that the manifestation and the unmanifestation of the universe and the planets, it happens in like a cyclical thing. It's like everything's kind of temporary. But just as the other Mataji thought of, I instantly started thinking of mourning, because perhaps because of a lot of people are dying, and so I was thinking about how there's so many cultures that mourning is the process of healing, right? And even though we understand that we're not the body, there's this need for, in a sense, lamentation to heal, right? And I was thinking about how we listen to the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam as a source of, we listen so that we can, kind of like rise up and perhaps maybe someday, be with Krishna. But in other cultures, like there are some Catholics who, do the process of sacrifice. They like hit themselves on their backs, like how Jesus died. They do the whole process, hang and put themselves on the cross as a sense of, it's kind of like lamentation, I think, because it's a whole like week process of like them walking down the street, slapping themselves with this whip on their back, bleeding, and like hanging, literally going on the cross. And I don't know if you ever seen it. I studied anthropology, so I've seen
Muslims do it. The Muslims do it in Iran, and they whip themselves like that over something.
And it's a belief that, through this lamentation, they will get closer to God, because if they can endure what Jesus endured, I guess.
Well, when you read, if you go to 17th chapter of the Gita, that you're going to find out that Krishna says, that Sharira, what does it say? Goram, one who, this is mode of ignorance, this type of, it's an austerity. It's a type of austerity in the mode of ignorance when you harm the body. And it even mentions a super soul. The super soul is independent, but you have no respect for the super soul within your own body, because the body should be maintained and utilized. Nirdehamajam, it's a boat for transcendent understanding, spiritual instructions. It's not meant for just, you find that in India, they have a way of where they hang also from different, hooks, and they lie on coals or nails, and they do these certain austerities. They may not do it in a way that these Christians and Muslims do it, but they're all categorized by Krishna in the 17th chapter. Sharira Stam, those, how does it go? I can't remember the Sanskrit, but there's this, these things are described, austerity, tapasya, in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness. So it's summed up in a nice verse that Prabhupada used to quote. How does it go? Aradito yare harish tapasa takim. No matter what tapasya you do, this is actually in the mode of ignorance, but there are legitimate tapasyas that can be a mode of goodness. But aradito yare hare tapasa takim. If you do any tapasya, whether goodness, passion, or ignorance, but you don't worship Hari, aradito yare harish tapasa takim. Kim means, what is the use of, you don't need these tapasyas, even in the mode of goodness, if you worship Hari or Krishna. And Naradito, the next line is almost the same. Naradito tapasata. Very easy to memorize that shloka, because the first two lines are identical, except there's Naradito. If you don't worship Hari, if you don't worship Krishna, then all your tapasya, what is the use of it? Then the two lines again are identical almost, the last two. If inside and out you see Krishna, you see Krishna, then there's no use of tapasa. And if inside and out you don't see Krishna, then also your tapasya is useless. So a very nice, catchy little verse. So this tapasya is a mode of ignorance, and highly unrecommended.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I was just thinking about those correlations between how people mourn and lament. Like even in Africa, people are hired as someone to mourn in a funeral. Like someone's literally hired, and they're crying and stomping and doing all of this. They don't even know the family. They're just kind of doing it.
Oh yeah, they're getting paid acting like.
Yeah.
So they're enhancing the mood of lamentation with the. Yeah.
Right. And you see this in many cultures, and I just think it's kind of a interesting, very interesting.
The first chapter is called Lamentation Yoga. Vishada means lamentation. The whole first chapter, that's the name of it. They all have different names, and sometimes they give in other names. Just like if you see here, this Gita Bhushan, the commentaries by, Prabhupada dedicated his Gita to Baladev Vidyabhushan. So this commentary, so in here, the different chapters have names that Baladev Vidyabhushan has chosen. So chapter 1 is also called Vishada Yoga, meaning this lamentation. But here, this chapter, second chapter, is called Atmanatma Viveka Yoga. And there's a little sentence there also. He gives, a person will become a Gyani, remembering the Lord, by performance of Nishkama Karma. To do otherwise creates only obstacles. This is the essence of the second chapter. Then he gives essence of the third, for all 18 chapters. The third chapter explains that one should principally practice Nishkama Karma Yoga. Nishkama, of course, means without lust, without any desire. Do your yoga, Karma Yoga. And secondarily, Jnana Yoga, which arises from it, for gaining a vision of Atma. Very nice to hear from Baladev Vidyabhushan. Prabhupada dedicated his Gita to Baladev Vidyabhushan, so there's no problem in hearing what he says.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
I just have a question relative to grieving and what different cultures do. And I don't know if this is true, but I was wondering if people knew if I've heard that in Japan and during the grieving process that when they have wakes or whatever they call it there, that they hire professional criers to really generate the mood of grieving. And I think that's kind of, has anybody ever heard of that?
She just said that about Africa. Did you tune out or
But
something?
was there talk in Japan or?
Well, I mean, they do it in Africa, they do it in Japan. I know in Japan they'll hire a husband or a brother. They hire people to be one of their relatives for a month or a week or something, or every day. I'm kind of far out.
I
They
heard
have
of there.
robots. Japan has robots now for, several. You can get them for a few 100,000 or a million or something, and they marry them. They marry the robot too. So I mean, then, you know, so they're ahead of the United States in so many ways.
But it's also believed that the soul will progress to the next stage of life if people are grieving. They realize that they're actually like dead, and they kind of move on. So it's considered like a service to the soul.
Right.
The
But
grieving.
they're not in touch. A Shastra, if you read the end of the 16th chapter in the Shastra Vihitam Goram, what does it say? A Shastra Vidhi Utstrajan, Vartate Kamakarata, Nasa Siddhim Avapnati, Nasukam Naparangatim. You won't get Sukam or the supreme destination by those methods. They're not prescribed methods at all. Because first of all, you're supposed to cremate the body, or else the person stays attached to it. They don't even know that. There's so many things they don't know, many things. So just by hiring people to cry is not going to do anything. It's wasting their money. But I guess they have extra money. I don't know. But anyway. Shoka Ashu Sagara Vishoshana Matyudala. There's an ocean of tears of people lamenting. It's described by Kapila Dev in the 28th chapter, the third canto. Shok Ashru Sagara. Shoka means lamentation. Ashru is tears. Sagaram is an ocean of tears of lamentation. But that can be dried up by the prescription by Kapila Dev, meditating on the parts of Krishna's feet, on up to the face, smiling face. Smeram Bangi Traya Parichitam Satyavishina Dishtam. Rupa Goswami says, if you're attached to family and their body and all those things, then don't see Krishna smiling, playing his flute by the Keshi God, Keshi Tirtopaka. Don't go there, because if you get attracted to Krishna, then you're going to give up all your lamentation and attachment. So don't, he's saying, don't, it's like child psychology. You tell a child, no, don't eat those vegetables. They're not, you want your child to eat vegetables. You tell them, don't eat those. They're not good, and you might eat them. So Rupa Goswami is using that psychology. Of course, it's humorous because anyone reading Rupa Goswami is already pretty much there. Rupam tasyagvajam urupanim koshtavati praptayasha patita kipaya shigarum tamatosmi. He's the guru. Shri Rup Sanatana about the Radhana, Shri Jiva Gopal about the Panchagras. Narottam says, my 5 kinds of foodstuff are the dust of the feet of the 6 Goswamis. Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago, Shri Jiva Gopal. We offer everyone Saranyako, they must take shelter of them. Why? Nana Shastra Vicharanaka Nipano Sadhana something. Because they studied all these Shastras. I mean, they didn't have the database, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have Google, they didn't have anything. No, they knew. Gopal Bhatta, he knew 300 Shastras. He knew the Puranas, he knew all this. Jiva Goswami, vast super intellects. They're quoting all these things. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was a living, walking encyclopedia. They didn't have to pore every time through a book. Oh, let me see, let me put this. You couldn't accomplish what they did in this short amount of time. No way. You have to know this stuff. 7 years old, 6 years old, they knew this stuff. 8 years old, 10 years old, they knew this stuff. They knew this stuff. They knew it, studied it, learned it, knew it. Done. Got it. Got the t-shirt. We're struggling to learn a little few things that, can't even imagine. Can't even imagine. They weren't wasting time, they weren't like pitching quarters in the street and, playing football and, no. They conquered eating, sleeping, and vihara means recreation also. They have, Prabhupada said, our movement is nothing but recreation. We don't require any other recreation. We're dancing, singing, all the time. What more do you want? He said, Ananda Buddhivardhanam, the bliss is ever increasing. Kevala Anandakam, simply, Narottam says that it's simply the path of bliss only, that's all. And you don't have to lament about lamenting or even, one doesn't lament, just never thinks about it. Any other stuff. But if you study the Shastra, then you understand that these people are torturing their body, but for what reason? Krishna says there in the 17th chapter. Here I can find the verse right here. 17th chapter, the beginning of it, he says, divine, here we are, 15, 17. Shastra Vihitam Goram. Austerity of the body consists of worshiping the Lord. David, these are the tapasyas that we want to do. David Vija Guru Pragyam Pujanam Shocham Archaram. That Brahmacharya Himsamcha. Shariram, tapa means austerity. So, austerity of the body consists of worshiping Deva, means the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, Dvija, Guru, and superiors like father, mother, and cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. And then austerity of the speech, anudbegakaram bhakyam, satyam priyatam chya. Austerity of speech consists of speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others. And regularly reciting Vedic literature. Vedic literature means the Shastras. Then austerity of the mind is mana prasada somyatvam monamatma vinigraha bhava samsuri tapamana samute. Okay, we know those, but here, in several slokas before that, is austerity, eating in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. There's a lot of stuff. But here, those who undergo severe austerity, this is verse 6 and 7, or 5 and 6, undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scripture, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, foolish, who torture the material elements of the body as well as the super soul dwelling within, are known as asuras, demons. So it's all there laid out in Bhagavad-gita 5 and 6, 17, 5 and 6. Anything else? Oh, it's already past time suddenly. Time. Kalos me lokakshay pravido. Time I am, come to destroy. Everyone here will die. Krishna.
How about we have a little kirtan now?
All right, somebody else can lead it.
Would you please? That would be great.
You want me to do it? What about all those great kirtanias that are out in the audience?
for this one, it'd be, I think since we only see you once in a while, it would be awesome.
Oh, okay. All right. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Binda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai
Haribo. So thanks so much, Puskar Prabhu, for the enlightening discussion that you led. If you would like to, all those who are here with us this evening, feel free to unmute yourself and join me in expressing appreciation for Puskar Prabhu. Haribo.
Haribol. Haribol.
Haribo.